Thank you so much for joining in. I know you're giving up a lot of activities like going to the opera and out to dinner. And so we appreciate you being here. No, in all seriousness, we realize that people, even though you're home with a lot of things that you can't do, that life really gets busy at home. And, you know, there's a quote on Facebook that I thought was kind of funny. And it said that our grandparents had world wars to live through. We're being asked to stay home and watch TV. Don't fuck it up. And I thought that was so funny because, and so apropos, because it's not that easy really to stay home and not go out and do the things we want. And we don't want to screw up that, but we really don't want to screw up our relationships. And so we get a bigger dose of our partners staying at home. It's also an opportunity to take our relationships to the next level.
Next level.
What's that? Oh, I thought I heard something. So that's what tonight is all about, and all the subsequent Mondays. How do we navigate this new territory that we're in, spending more time together, dealing with additional breakdowns, but also how do we use this opportunity to take our relationship to the next level? So with that, we have a lot of people submitted questions.
Let me say a few things before.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, so I just also want to introduce myself for those of you who are on who don't know me. I'm Craig Lambert. I'm Debbie's husband. And Debbie came up with this idea, actually. You know, we have a new book that's out. It's called The Mindful Couple, 52 Tips for Real Love and Connection. And it's on Amazon. And the whole concept of being mindful, which is what the book was based on, seems to be something that right now could be a very important kind of discussion that we all want to have, and how to stay mindful during these very challenging times. So Debbie came up with the idea of with Sarah doing Mindful Mondays. And we're going to do this every Monday from here on in. And we're excited about it because I think we all need community. We all need support. And our couplehood, our relationship, definitely needs support. You know, we all can use a little help with maximizing the potential of our beautiful relationships. You know, so we're really here to support you during these challenging times, to make sure that we're utilizing our relationship as a vehicle for our own growth, our own personal growth, and our relationship growth. And so we're here to do that for you. And of course, in these challenging times right now, we want to focus on that. We want to like deal with the elephant in the room, so to speak. So coronavirus is the elephant, and we want to deal head on with how it's impacting your relationship, my relationship, everybody's relationship, because it's certainly having an impact. And, you know, it's a crisis. And how you deal with crisis in your relationship is very important, because we all deal with crises differently. And I want to make sure that we're all connecting and being able to work through these crises in a way that we're respectful and honoring each other's way of doing that, which is often within a couple very different for each of you. So that's kind of the focus. We're going to really focus today on some of the questions that you all have about what it's like to be a couple during these trying times, and also some questions that have come in already. So thank you for being here. We're excited, and here we go.
Okay, so I have a bunch of questions that came in before, but again, we do invite you through the chat box to enter your own personal questions, so we'll give those priority. Okay, so the first question I have is, since in quarantine, I've been noticing everything my partner does wrong. Leaving the dirty dishes everywhere, throwing clothes on the floor, I feel like a nag. What should I do? So Craig and I are just going to kind of go back and forth and give you some ideas on our thoughts on that question.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine during this time that becoming hyper attentive to your partner's behavior is going to be an obvious response. So we want to be able to kind of notice if we're becoming more critical. And, you know, that is our tendency. Can you hear Andrea? Can everybody hear?
I'm just making sure my husband's listening loud and clear.
Okay.
I don't see him. I think he left the room.
You know, a common complaint that you often hear among couples is, I can't do anything right, or I don't feel appreciated. So, you know, and it's easy to focus on what your partner is doing wrong instead of focusing on what they're doing right. So our focus is to do that, to help you all remember to look at what your partner's doing well and comment and appreciate that. And that's the first step. That doesn't mean you dismiss these behaviors and ignore these behaviors that are bothering you, but you also want to make sure that you're giving a healthy dose on the other side of appreciating what they are doing well. That's number one.
I just want to
Please.
mention that for those of you who are old enough to remember Ken Blanchard, he wrote The 1 Minute Manager. And I always tell my clients that the essence of that book was catching people right and letting them know about it, versus, it was a management book, so it was about your employees, versus catching them doing things wrong and letting them know about it. And it's such a powerful, what you're talking about is just so powerful, because it's our natural inclination to say, oh, don't do that. And why did you do that again? And then that quickly goes to you always or you never, because we create these really big stories, right?
Right.
And so to catch people doing things right and appreciating them for it is really a major shift, but a really, really important one. And psychologically, when I'm acknowledged for something, I want to live up to your expectations. You know, the other story that I often tell is, you know, when I was in college and I had a boyfriend and he was like a slob, but we all had to take turns to vacuum, and he was a terrible vacuumer. I mean, just like awful. And we had this, it was back in the 70s, we had maroon carpet. And so if you didn't vacuum very well, you can see like how bad it was. And he would never move things out of the way. Well, I was sitting there and I was watching him vacuum. I was getting kind of annoyed just watching him because I knew it was going to be not very good. And then he just happened to take a plant and he moved it and he vacuumed, you know, underneath. And I said, Chip, I said, I was a psychology student. And I thought, I'm going to try out my psychology. So I said, Chip, you do such an amazing job. You know, compared to all of us, you're the only one that takes things and moves them when you vacuum. And it makes a really big difference. And he's like kind of puffed up and he said, thank you. And from that point on, he became the best vacuumer. And so it just showed me at a young age the power of catching people doing things right and letting them know that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes total sense. So moving on that same question, that doesn't solve the problem of the dirty dishes in the sink and the laundry on the dirty laundry on the floor. So what do we do about that? So of course you want to let your partner know, but the important thing is how you say it. So it's not, we like to say, of course, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And that is such an important distinction. So very often, instead of asking and making a request, we may make a demand, you know, or we might criticize the person for doing it. So that's not going to work, that's going to backfire. So we want to use a technique that we've been teaching, we teach all our couples, it's a very important technique, of making sure your partner is hearing you and listening. So let's say you want to do something about the dishes in the sink that's piling up. So you would say, I'd like to have a conversation about that. And you'd ask your partner, you know, and you tell them why it's bothering you. So you might say something like, why don't you try it out? What would you say to me?
You clean up the dishes now.
Clean up the damn dishes.
I would probably say, you know, when you get a chance, I'd really appreciate if you can clean the dishes. You know, I'm a little crazy with the dishes.
And I might say, so you really want me to clean those dishes?
Yeah.
I'm mirroring her. I'm basically mirroring what she's saying to me so that I'm hearing her. Now she can actually say to me, will you please mirror me? I would like you to mirror me back, because that way she knows I'm listening to her.
I would say, like on a small request like this, you probably think, well, why do I have to mirror on something that small? So a mirroring can be really effective if if you really think the person's not listening.
Right.
So you might say, "Did you hear what I said?
Right.
Can you
Or
tell
can
me?
you tell me back what I
Right.
just said?
Can you tell me
Yeah.
so I know you got it?"
But you can even deepen that because you want to validate that she's feeling very stressed out about these dishes in the sink. So I want to be able to cross over and understand her perspective. They may not be important to me. I don't really care if the dishes are piling up in the sink. It's not a big deal. I don't care if my clothes are on the floor, but she does. So I want to make sure she understands that I understand where she's coming from. And that's where a lot of breakdowns occur. It's not that I don't care. It's just that she doesn't really understand that I do care because I'm not doing anything. So I want to validate her. I want to say, I do really get where you're coming from. And that's another key point. So those are two things you can do right off the bat is make sure you're listening and you're validating and you're mirroring. But there's another technique that Debbie developed, which I really, really love. And I want you to talk about the Venmo game. This is my favorite technique.
So Craig and I have some things that both of us do that become really annoying over time, and we just didn't see any change in it. So what was the first one? Now we've got like a
It was
whole
the
list of them.
phone.
It was the phone.
Yeah.
So Craig was telling me that I'm always on the phone and it's creating disconnection. And what was so funny about that is that was my story about him. I was 100% certain that he was on his phone and that was creating disconnection. So I said, okay, why don't we just do this? Let's say that whoever's on their phone when we're together without asking permission has to pay the other one $100. And Craig's like, no problem, done, right? And I'm like, okay, great, this is gonna be wonderful. So we're both going forward thinking that we're gonna make so much money on this because it's the other one that's a problem. And what happened is it was like some unintended positive consequences. It wasn't really about the money. But let's say like Craig got on his phone and I'd say $100 and he's like, shoot. So he would Venmo me $100. But it was like such a great instant reminder. But it was also like for me, or vice versa, doesn't matter. For me, it was like, okay, I didn't mind that he was on his phone because like I made $100. So it was like a win-win. I didn't have to nag him. All I had to do was bill him. And it got the point across. And then over a short period of time, it became really clear who was, a bigger offender or who was changing their behavior.
I was the one who wanted to do it in the first place. But, after losing a couple of grand, I've gotten pretty good.
It's like a profit center for me.
But truthfully, you can do this for anything. You can do it for the dishes in the sink. It doesn't have to be $100. You can negotiate that. But the point is, a little pain can shape a behavior. And so, if there is something that you're struggling with your partner, go ahead and set up a little game like that and tell them, every time you do that, you pay me $50 or $25 or whatever it's going to be.
And we do it with our clients, and what we receive back is a lot of positive feedback that it actually works. And, it's amazing how often we use it on different things and how effective it is. Like going out and drinking too much is one that I've had several times. My husband goes out and after 3 drinks, he's drunk and I don't like it.
Yeah.
So bill him after 1 or 2,
Yeah.
So it's good.
So again, the question is, we're noticing everything my partner does wrong, leaving dirty dishes everywhere, throwing clothes on the floor, and I'm nagging him. So that's, this is some advice on how to deal with that. Debbie, let me ask you this other question that came in from Mary from Delmar. It feels like my partner and I are dealing with everything so differently. We don't feel compatible. We're responding to this crisis so differently. Not sure what to do.
Well, I would imagine it's hard without Mary here, but if you're out there, maybe you could type in more specifically how you're responding to the crisis differently. We're already hearing it with our clients. Some are more attached to the news, and I think as a result, a lot of times the anxiety goes up. and somebody else is less attached and they're less anxious. So maybe, what I've seen with my clients is the person who is not watching the news so much and is less anxious is more careless, perhaps. So one of the differences we're seeing is, one doesn't wash their hands enough and the other one is washing them more. And so there's disagreement there. I think what's really important in a general sense in this situation is knowing that this crisis is going to create, it's going to amplify whatever's going on with us. And as spouses, as partners, we really want to connect to that and be sensitive to that. And so if one, we haven't really dealt with that personally, I don't think. We're having a technical. Okay, we're back. So I think my answer to that would be to increase our awareness, our sensitivity, and our love for the other person by really tuning in to what's going on with them and what can I do to meet your needs, even if I disagree with them, or even if I share a different slant on the situation. That during this time, and always, I want you to feel loved and connected and safe. And so I'm going to be really curious about what's going on with you. And if you're feeling grouchy or defensive, rather than react to that, I might be curious about it. Hey, what's going on? Is everything okay? What can I do to help?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Now I got to tell my daughter to stop closing the doors.
Yeah, I hear her upstairs.
Sarah?
Anybody
Okay.
writing in feel free again to write in on the chat if you have any questions. John from Oceanside wrote in, I have a lot of fears and insecurity that cause me a lot of anxiety. I don't know how to manage these fears, and I'm not feeling like my partner is fully understanding me and what I'm going through right now. So there's a lot of fears and insecurities right now, as you can imagine, and as you're all experiencing perhaps yourself, the insecurity of not having enough food, the insecurity about possibly losing your job, financial insecurity, there's food insecurity, there's the fear of getting ill, there's the fear of dying. I mean, there are a lot of people out there that are really, really, really afraid and feeling very insecure. So the list goes on and on and on. Not to sound like a broken record, but the idea of deeply listening to your partner, it's the same thing over and over again, is if we could just stop our own ego mind from having to, either fix it or problem solve it. Because a lot of people, that's what they want to do. As soon as I hear you start sharing your fears and your insecurities, oh, don't worry, it's going to be fine. That's the worst thing you can do. You basically just need to slow your mind down and just get into listening mode. It's not about fixing the problem. It's really just about being present. And being present means being mindful. And being mindful means being focused and paying attention to what your partner is sharing with you. The way you do that, again, is just let me make sure I hear what you're saying and mirroring back. It's a broken record for us. Mirror back and validate your partner's perspective.
I think if I was dealing with somebody who was experiencing a lot of anxiety, and we're seeing that too show up, I think it would be important as a partner to quantify it. And we do that in our session. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say your anxiety is? And so I want to get a baseline. So if you were really anxious, I would say, okay, Craig, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being off the charts, I need to go to the hospital, but that's not a good place for me to be right now, but I can hardly manage it. And 1 being, I'm fine, where are you? And that would, as your partner, I want to stay in contact with that.
Right.
So, because I want to know what you're doing, what I can do to help. So let's say you weigh in at a 7. I might say to you, okay, you're a 7. Is there anything I can do to help you get down to a 6?
I see. That's great.
Yeah. And then we stay in contact on that. And, how are you doing today? I'm a 5. That's great. That's better. What did you do to get down to a 5? Or I'm a 9. Ooh, ouch. What can I do to help? What's going on? Tell
I
me.
love that question. What can I do to help? That is one of my favorite questions. And I'm a big question guy. You know, on Halloween, I go out as the question man, with a big question mark. I ask people questions. I like open-ended, interesting, important questions that deepen the conversation. And one of those questions is, what can I do to make your stress a little easier? How can I support you? And
Can I tell a story? So when we met, and Craig has this big computer, and he had a question on it, and it says, for Debbie, what can I do to make your day better? And
Yeah.
I thought, that's so cute. I mean, a little creepy,
Yeah.
but cute. I don't know, love him or leave him. No, but it was really sweet. And the question, he does ask it a lot, and it's very much appreciated.
It's true. What can you do to make, what can I do to make your day a little easier? When it comes to anxiety, though, there's also the whole question of, you know, how do you self-soothe? And I think that, you know, people are really starting to understand that we need to find coping mechanisms during these trying times to kind of soothe ourselves, to calm ourselves, to bring us back to that place of where we feel comfortable and safe and secure. You know, whether it's going for a walk, listening to music, riding, we have a Peloton, I'm on the Peloton, riding the bike on a daily basis, it helps a lot. So finding those things for yourself that give you that peace that you're looking for is another way of managing your anxiety. You know, we can't always look to our partner to manage our anxiety, you know, although they should be there for you when they can.
You know, they say that the opposite of fear is love. And so if I think about that and I want to move away from fear and I want to move more toward love, the energy of love, right? Because fear is an energy and love is energy. Then, you know, something as simple as, I mean, you go back to all the mindfulness practices. So if I go for a walk, I might go for a walk, and the energy of love is appreciation. I might look around and look at all the things that I really appreciate. I appreciate the smell of the trees and the movement of the leaves and the ability. I might tap into gratitude. I'm grateful to be able to walk and to have this air to breathe. I'm grateful to be alive.
Sure.
I'm grateful to be able to have my sight. And so we move into all those energies of love are really important. And, you know, I used to do a lot of walking meditations with groups. And what we would do, which is really powerful, is just pay attention to one sense at a time. So shut off all your senses and just open, connect with sight, and look at the leaves, and look at the ground, look at the sky, and look at your arms, and look at the people walking around 6 feet apart. And just appreciate it. Just appreciate that you're there experiencing that really in the present moment. And then I might shut off sight and connect to just hearing. All I'm paying attention to is what I hear.
Nice.
And I hear my feet walking, and I hear voices in the distance, and I hear the leaves rustling, whatever it is that I hear. And I connect to that, and I connect with the energy of love, which is appreciation and gratitude and, you know, compassion for the mother who may be yelling at her daughter down the street. And then I do that with all my senses. And what it does is vibrationally, it raises our vibration. It puts us at a higher level. So fear is down here, and the energy of love is up here. So the more I meditate and the more I do that as I walk, I'm just raising my vibration, which reduces my anxiety because I'm just further away from fear.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a question? I don't know if we can, how do we do that?
No one's typed anything in.
Nobody typed in, okay.
Do you want to say hi to anyone? Amanda's here. Andrea.
Hi, Andrea. Again, I love you. My sister. Do any of you know that I have a
There's
sister?
Emma. Hi, Emma.
Emma! I'm so glad you're here.
Erin Dumart.
Wow.
Kathleen.
Hi.
Hi.
Gashtavi,
Hi,
Liz,
Emma.
Kathleen.
and Mitch Simon.
Mitch Simon.
Mitch Simon. Wow. I'm honored. So we have another question that's very interesting. I think many people these days are struggling with this. This is from John. He says, I'm not feeling like I have enough space for myself. And Patricia says, it's been tremendously challenging spending more time at home together due to this virus. So this is an interesting dilemma because it speaks to one of our tips actually in our book, which we call balancing us time and me time. So I like, many of you have heard of Cahill Gibran. He says, "Let there be space in your togetherness." I love that quote. And it's not surprising that many couples are finding themselves in conflict, finding their personal space and finding that balance. So this is a real dilemma for a lot of people. And I think that there's a lot of techniques and tricks to the trade on this one. Um, you know, it's even more difficult to be alone when you're in the house together. It's one thing when you're not in the house and you're trying to have alone time. You can kind of go out. You can go out with your buddies. You can go do something. You can go for a ride and go to a restaurant. You can do a lot of things. But when you're both stuck in the house together and you're trying to find alone time, it has to be negotiated. It has to be discussed. It has to be talked about. So the issue here is not for everybody, obviously, but for some, is having a conversation with your partner about what your needs are in terms of alone time, because they're very different. Like Debbie, she gets all her energy from talking and being with people. Me, I get all my energy from being by myself and being quiet. I get recharged in that way. So we have different ways of different needs when it comes to alone time. So if you're not able to get that alone time, it can create a lot of anxiety, can create a lot of conflict. So negotiating what it is you need and maybe finding some ways of creating that. So if you're now working from home, which many people are, you need to find a way to have an office or a business location where you can go and do your work and not be interrupted. And everybody in the family, your partner, any children, all need to know that that is your space where you're doing your work. So that would be one thing I would suggest. Another way to handle this is family meetings. I mean, Debbie and I are big proponents of family meetings. That would mean on a regular basis, having a meeting where you can talk to each other about what you need and what you're not getting. So we really feel strongly about that. We have actually a meeting on a daily basis where we sit down and we negotiate what our day is going to be like. We discuss it. We talk about what our needs are for that day, how we can support each other. And especially in these trying times, it's not a bad idea to sit down together before your day starts and talk with each other about it. Like, what do you need in terms of personal space today? At least what you're sensing at the moment. And the last thing is, expect that it's not always going to go perfectly. There will be interruptions. There will be times when maybe your space gets interrupted, and be patient and be understanding about that, especially if there's kids in the picture.
Good kind of question.
So my partner is living the life. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah. Why don't you
Yeah.
do
So
that?
we have a question in. My partner is living the life right now with all this downtime, but my business world is on fire and I'm more mentally consumed than I've ever been. How do we bridge that gap when we're stuck inside?
So, so you're really consumed with your business,
Yeah.
and your husband or partner, not so much, right? So your energy focus is very different. You're really moving forward and creating and making things happen. And there's probably some stress and also some excitement, but definitely focus, right? And your partner may be on a different wavelength, just kind of chilling and cooling. And so your question was, how do I bridge the gap when we're stuck inside? And I think it goes back to a lot of what we're already saying. It's a conversation. So what is it that you're not getting in this space where you're in different modes that you really would appreciate and enjoy? And back to what you were saying too, is having a conversation. And so many of us, because we don't want to insult the other person, or we don't know how to have it, there's just these missing conversations that are just dangling, right? And so the first step is to have the conversation. Say, listen, we're at different spaces, and I want to talk about what's working really well in having those different spaces, because there's probably things that are working well, that you're complementing each other, and it's great. But there's also things that are needed that aren't being met on both sides, right? So I would say the beginning is just having that loving conversation with the intention of more love and connection between the two of you, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, Debbie, you sometimes refer to the concept of loving boundaries. And for me, how that plays out with this question is that there may be some areas where you're feeling that your needs are not getting met. And I think that's a big area for couples, is being able to say what your needs are. A lot of us grew up in families where that just wasn't allowed,
Right.
or it wasn't acceptable, or if we did it, it somehow backfired on us if we said what we need. So this could be a really good practice for you to begin to step forward and tell your partner, okay, I see you're having a great life here and it's really working well for you. And I'm glad you're having fun, but there's certain needs that are not being met that I have. And that kind of conversation is hard to have. And of course, you want to ask your partner to please mirror you. Please repeat back what I'm saying, because the typical reaction could be just a reaction, not really hearing you, but more like defensiveness.
I think it's so important when you ask somebody to mirror you. We had this when we first started dating, because you were really heavy into the mirroring.
Yeah,
And when you asked me, I felt like, oh God, I'm in trouble.
yeah,
I think it's really important to keep it light. And so the way that I might phrase it would be, I just want to make sure that you really got me, because I think I want to just make sure you got it.
yeah.
So can you just like repeat it back so
Yeah.
I make sure that we're on the same page? Versus saying, would you please mirror me?
Right. Well, the funny thing about that is, and just be aware when you're doing this exercise, because there's some pitfalls. When a person mirrors you back, oftentimes they don't. They don't do it. They either say what they say what they're thinking, and they think they're mirroring you because they're not clear what you're asking them to do, or they repeat back something completely different from what you said. And that happens more times than you would imagine, because our listening skills are pretty poor. Plus, we're filtering everything you're saying through my own opinions, judgments about what you're sharing with me. So you really want to make sure that they're getting it. It's a really big, there's a lot of misses, a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of misinterpretations that go on from me just not hearing what you're saying and misinterpreting what you're saying. So that mirroring back, if the partner does it and they don't get it, you want to say, no, that's not what I said. And you want to repeat it again, and then give them another opportunity to repeat back what you said.
But going back to her concern, which I think is such a common one. And I think what happens is that, okay, so we're both on different wavelengths, right?
Very different.
And what we do as human beings is we create this story, and the story is never a good one. The story goes, I can't tell him, because if I do, he's going to get defensive, or he doesn't listen to me, or nothing ever changes. And so we live in these stories that they may be grounded stories, or maybe some evidence for them, but when we fail to take action to change the reality, then that's where we get caught up, and the story gets bigger. Right. And that's when we start saying, he never, he always. Right. And if you find yourself saying that, then you're down the wrong path. And a lot of times what I find is we have to look to our childhoods often. It's like, when was I not able to really stand up and ask for what I want? Because my story was that I would never get it. And so,
or it wasn't safe.
And so these pushing that boundary and really standing in a loving space and asking for what you want is just such a powerful thing to do. And so, we always encourage you to take that step and just do it, drawing from the energy of love, just doing it in a really loving way.
Gotcha.
We have a good follow-up question to that. It says, what if you're spent, exhausted, and just can't mirror back because you just can't listen anymore?
So this would be the person.
Yeah, I would say my first response, and I definitely want to hear what you have to say about that, is that if a person is spent and tired and can't do it, then they shouldn't do it.
Right.
It's really clear to me that these kinds of conversations, both of you have to have the energy for it, and the time and the patience. And so we always say our very favorite line is, I want to have a conversation. Is now a good time? We love that line. And you're not just asking it, to just ask it. You really mean, do you have the time and the energy to do this now. I want to talk to you. It's very important. I want your undivided attention. And if your partner says no, then it's no, but caveat, they have to give you a time. So within the next 24 hours or as soon as possible. That's our rule of thumb. But we always give people an opportunity to say, no, I'm just not up for talking right now. That's what my, there's so many reasons. They might be tired. They could be hungry. They could be just wiped out, from the day, as you're saying. So, we want to give the respect that's due for people's boundaries.
Yeah, I think too often in relationships, we have those conversations when we're really not in the space to have it.
Yeah.
And it's disrespectful for the couple.
Yeah.
And energetically, it just brings it down. And you
Yeah.
can't expect to achieve any level of creating a new space from that down space. But it's a habit we get into. You come home and you're upset from work and you just start entering into these conversations.
Yeah. It's a difficult time sometimes to hear no. I don't want to talk about it right now.
But I do want to hear what you have to say.
But I do want to hear what you have to say, and just not right now.
Yeah, tomorrow would be great. Can we do it tomorrow?
Or tonight.
Or tonight.
Yeah. Hopefully tonight.
So we had another question. What are some activities you find couples can do to pass the time and have quality time together these days?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I can speak to what we've been doing, which I love, and it's not the only thing you can do. We've gotten addicted to it. So we thought, well, we always tell, not always, but often we'll tell our clients when we start working with them, is just spend an hour cleaning out something that if you cleaned it out would make you feel better. It could be a drawer, it could be a cupboard, whatever. And the reason for that is because our physical space is just so important to us. And energetically, if it's cluttered and it doesn't feel good, it occupies more space in our brain than it needs to. So when this happened, Craig and I both felt like the garage is a mess, parts of the kitchen are a mess, our office are a mess. Not a total mess, but certainly need cleaning. But we never have time for it. We're always working on these different projects. And so when this happened, I said, let's make the garage a priority. Mm-hmm. And so we did. And the more we clean, the more we want to clean. And so we're getting a lot of stuff done. And it feels so good. So that's one thing.
Yeah, the other thing that I think this relates to is fun, having fun together. A lot of people are now together for the first time, having all this time at home. They're not going on vacation, they're not going out with friends. We're here. So it's a great question is, what do you do? What kind of activities can we do to really enjoy ourselves together? And I think the idea of just sitting down in your morning, and Debbie and I do this every morning. We sit down in bed with our coffee and we talk about what the day is going to present. And we set an intention. And in that intention, we decide, what do we want to create today? What do we want this day to look like? And almost always, we want to integrate some fun, some time together that can be enjoyable. So we will come up with our intention. And we've been doing all kinds of things. Yesterday, Debbie and she takes a Zumba class every week. And I don't like to go to Zumba classes.
You never went.
I've never gone. But the teacher decided to do it online, on Zoom, like so many classes now. And I joined in. And we had a great time.
It was hysterical. Like everybody's, doing their thing. And I see behind me Craig going like this.
Yeah, I was doing my best. But, that kind of thing is going to change the dynamics of your day. It's going to add some fun. We go for walks in the neighborhood, keeping our safe distance. And, we are cooking more than ever before, which is another activity that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, because again, for us, we're not big cooks. And so when this happened, Craig was the one that said, I want to find recipes and I want to go to the store and make stuff. So here we are going to these stores where things are off the shelf, left, right, and center. And we're going to all these different stores trying to find these crazy ingredients we don't have. But it was fun. And, cooking is such a creative thing. And for us, because we don't do it, it's been fantastic.
I think that if you have that intention in the morning to have fun, you will. Just set the intention. and
Right.
ask yourself a question. Ask yourself this: what's one thing we can do together today to have fun? Just ask that question with each other.
Tips for feeling overwhelmed now that we both have to continue working from home and have to care for homeschool 3 young kids.
Oh, wow.
This is a real problem, I think. Most of the clients that we're working with on Zoom now, the meetings are getting canceled, delayed, postponed because the kids are there and everybody's trying to find ground again in a new reality. And so being overwhelmed is you just haven't found ground yet. And it's a new schedule, it's a new thing, and a lot of it is just getting organized. Like, how do I organize this new reality to make it more sane? It's a conversation with the kids. It's a conversation. It's like a family meeting. Like, we've got all these things. The kids have online classes. You've got your work, and it's getting everybody together and just saying, okay, how do we make this so that we reduce the amount of stress and friction? And we have this with our online meetings. We're realizing that it's hard to do 2 meetings in the same house at the same time. And so that's created some stress and conflict. And so we're just kind of organizing around it. So that would be one. Get everybody together and just say, okay, how do we make this a little bit more sane?
Yeah.
That would be the first thing.
Yeah. I don't know how old the kids are, but if they're old enough to sit in a family meeting, and one of the things you can do is you can go around the group. And Emma, you know this one better than anyone because I learned this from Emma's mom. You go around the group and each person says one thing that they're grateful for and one thing that they're concerned about. And so you're beginning a dialogue so that everybody's sharing in whatever, maybe there's some stress that's going on. Even the kids can share that and tell you what they're struggling with. And there's just a lot of support and mirroring. So that's one thing I really like, those family meetings. The other thing is, you know, like Debbie said, it's new ground, it's unsettling, coming up with a structure. And I think that really it's a new normal, and you have to create a structure for your new normal. And I think many of you are already starting to do that and finding that out, that, you know, what's the day going to look like? What's the schedule? And being really clear of what we're going to be doing all day long, even in increments. You might want to set your schedule up by hour to hour or 2-hour increments and be clear about what is happening every 2 hours for the whole day. And that's going to help you feel a little bit more in control of the situation, a little saner.
I think with kids too, there's got to be some rules, some ground rules of what's okay and what's not okay. I think the rules may change because there's just more people in the house during working hours. So you have the kids at home doing their work. We're trying to do our work. And so we're sharing a space that's never been shared before.
Yeah.
And so, like, what are the rules that are really going to help make that okay? And then the other thing that comes to mind for me is just keeping it light.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody violates the rules, like, don't go crazy and you know, you should, we said we were going to do that and you didn't do that. Like, I think overall keeping it really, really light and forgiving and loving and fun is the key to getting through this and creating more love and connection rather than more disconnection and conflict.
Agree with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Hope that answered, but if it didn't, you can do a follow-up.
15 minutes.
15 minutes. Okay. Just a few more.
Okay.
Thanks for all of you hanging in there.
Sarah, you have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions?
I've been feeling very unsafe, disconnected, and unloved during this time. My boyfriend is in Fixit mode, glued to the news, has put together an extremely detailed plan hanging on a poster in the dining room detailing all of the things we have to do throughout the day. I feel like he's constantly nagging me about one thing or another. He's driving me crazy. So this is interesting because I have a couple of friends who are in this scenario. And, you know, I don't want to say it's a male thing, but it's definitely more of a male thing that men get into protective mode and they get into fix-it mode. And this can be a problem where they're just focusing on what has to get done, what has to get repaired, what has to get fixed here. And the protective mode is, I want to save you. I want to save your life. I want to save my life. You know, I want to save us from getting sick. So, you know, the intention is good. But of course, they're missing some major ingredients in that, which, do you want to speak to the major ingredients of the, almost the feminine aspect of this?
Well, I need to connect with you as a human being. I need to talk to you. I need to talk about what's going on with me, and I need you just to listen. I don't need you to fix anything.
Yeah.
Just be with me, and let me express what's going on. And that's usually what I see happening. And they're diametrically opposed.
It's a yin and a yang.
It's a yin and a yang. And so for me, I would say if it was the woman, first of all, to just really be appreciative of your guy who's really trying to protect you, because he's coming from a super loving place. If he's in protection mode, he's making you safe, and that's his act of love. So embrace that.
Right.
And then after you've embraced that, like, thank you so much for doing that, because I know you really care and you want to make us safe. And I really, really appreciate it. And I'm feeling a need to connect with you. And I just want to have a conversation without you fixing anything.
Right.
Like, don't fix anything for me. Just listen to me. Can you do that?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
And I will.
Can we do it now? Because I'm feeling you're so busy running around with the hand sanitizer and the rules and the flip charts, and like, I'm going crazy. I just feel like I don't even know who you are anymore. And I'm scared to death.
So you just want to connect with me. You want me to sort of relax on all these rules for a moment and just be with you.
Yeah, I just don't want to feel like the rules are everything in this house. Okay. I just want us to like talk without solving any problems.
Right. But you understand where I'm coming from.
I do. I totally get it. And I really, really appreciate it because I can check that off my list. Like, I don't have to worry about sanitizer and all these things because I know you've got that. It's like, check.
Okay.
But now I just want to.
You need some balance.
I need a little balance.
Yeah.
I need balance.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get that.
So that's the type of conversation that I would have if I was married to that guy, but I'm not.
Yeah. My anxiety around this could be coming through with my overprotectiveness and my need to really be obsessive about this, which a lot of people are, you know, it's, but then again, you know, it's my life, it's my health, it's your life. So, I mean, when it comes down to life and death, you know, this is your reaction is going to be your reaction based on your, you know, your childhood, what you learned, how you are, how you evolved. And if I have a lot of anxiety around this, she also needs to understand that and be compassionate and empathic about that. So I have a friend who works in a hospital, and when he comes home from the hospital, and his partner works in a hospital, he takes his clothes completely off, everything, before he walks in the house, and he expects that she'll do the same. That was really pushing her boundaries. She was like, you want me to take my clothes off before I enter the house? But he felt pretty strongly about it, and his anxiety was high. So and eventually she did. Of course she did, because she wants to relieve him of that anxiety. But you can see how it can get a little crazy at times. So you know, maybe that is the correct procedure. I don't know. So yeah, we have to just be sensitive and aware of those things. What else? I want to talk just briefly about stress-reducing conversations. Okay, this is one of John Gottman's ideas, and that's exactly what he calls it. If we're in anxiety, in fear, I think having a meeting, a regularly scheduled once-a-day meeting where we get to share our stressors with each other, one stressor. And the job for you, for the one partner who's sharing, is just to be elaborating on what's up for you, what's your biggest stressor right now. Your partner has one job: to listen. and to be there and to hear you and to be compassionate and to validate your feelings. And there's some great questions that your partner can ask. So as you're talking, of all the things you're sharing me, what is the most upsetting thing about this for you? Again, a great question, right? What is the most upsetting thing? But even more importantly, what can I do to help? What can I do to be supportive? So you have a stress-reducing conversation once a day just to relieve the pressure, just like opening up the tap and letting the water out. We need that. We need to be heard. We need to feel like our partner gets where we are, where we're coming from.
And notice what's not on the list.
What's on what?
Well, one thing you can do, or I have an idea for you, or what you should do.
Yeah, right.
All those
right,
fix-it little
right.
comments that we so easily go to. And so I love that process.
Yeah, yeah. So that would be a really good focus for, for one takeaway today. I'm sure there's many takeaways, but if there's one takeaway, I would love for the two of you to have one stress-reducing conversation once a day. Doesn't have to be a long 20 minutes. Each of you go back and forth and share one stressor and just have the other person be there sitting and listening and being compassionate and asking questions. What can I do to help?
And I think why that's so important now is because I was outside the other day and the gardener was there and he looked at me and he shook his head and he said, every day it gets crazier and crazier. And so while you maybe find one day, the next day something may hit you and you're not fine.
Yeah.
And so just having that kind of check-in is just really, really important. And it honors the fact that you don't really know your partner. In this changing environment, we don't really know what's going on. And asking is so important to check in.
Definitely, definitely. Final questions, anybody? We want to have one or two final questions. How are you guys feeling about this? As we said, we're going to do this every Monday, and it won't always be about the coronavirus. We thought we'd start today on that. We're going to have lots of ideas, lots of tips, and we're going to try to set it up so that it's actual more interaction so that you can speak and be seen by everybody.
Thanks,
What? What Emma
she
say?
said, this is great.
I love you, Emma. Miss you.
I love you too.
Yeah.
This is great. Very helpful. Really appreciate you both.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Caddy.
We talk about next week.
Yeah, so we only have a few minutes left. So next week, we're going to do the same thing, same time. So Monday at 7 o'clock. We're going to review how technologically it went. It seems like it went pretty well. I'm surprised because when I do my Zoom sessions, I usually have a problem, but we don't have Sarah here. We don't have Sarah helping out. So,
Really?
Yeah. So if you have any suggestions of things you'd like us to cover, best to contact probably you, Craig, right?
Yes.
So what's your
You can do
email?
it CraigLambertTherapy.com.
Or your email?
That can.
Craig at CraigLambertTherapy.com.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Yes. Craig at CraigLambertTherapy.com. That's it.
So submit any ideas you have, any questions you have, and we'll be giving thought to the format and kind of moving it forward on things that are relevant. We'd also love your feedback. What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? We're open. We're just playing here. And we put this together because we just realized this is a trying time, but kind of an exciting time. And it's an exciting time, I think, to move your relationship forward to levels that it hasn't been before. Yeah. We're spending more time together. I've got my daughter from New York who went off to college 5 years ago. And just the other day I was saying, I kind of miss having her at home. Like that will never happen again. Yeah. And boom, she's home. For how long, I don't know, but it's been great. It was just, and without this, it never would have happened. And the same thing's happening in your couples. Like you've got a lot of time to spend together. And how do we create that time to really create more love and more connection and more skills to help us be stronger moving forward?
Exactly. And if you have any ideas on format, that would be good as well. I realized Debbie and I talked about ending with a prayer or meditation, but we didn't prepare for that, so we don't have it. but we think that might be a nice thing to bring into this. So we'd love to hear your feedback. We're going to send this video out to you, so you'll have it. You know, if you want to see it, it'll be on, I think, on YouTube. Yeah, and you know, we'll be sending it to our entire mailing list every week. So you could, anybody who missed it, or if you know somebody who might enjoy it, you can send it to them and they can check it out on maybe Fridays. We're going to send it out. So thank you for your love, for your energy, for your time, and all of you. Thank you, Danielle, for being there.
Mitch Simon's waiting.
Thank you, Mitch. Thank you,
Okay.
Patty. Thank you, Liz. Oh man, we had a great group. I love this group. Amanda, wow. You guys are awesome.
And maybe you could share, do you say share the link with your friends?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, have a great night, you guys. We
Keep
love
it
you.
light, have fun, enjoy.
Yes, peace.
Okay.